حي على الفلاح. حي على خير العمل. حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وسلم.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله وأنه حجة الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر. ليلة القدر خير من 1000 شهر. تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر. سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربي. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إنه ليس لي علم بموضع رزقي، وإنما أطلبه بخطرات تخطر على قلبي، فأجول في طلبه البلدان، فأنا فيما أنا طالب كالحيران، لا أدري أفي سهل هو أم في جبل، أم في أرض، أم في سماء، أم في بر، أم في بحر، وعلى يدي من، ومن قبل من، وقد علمت أن علمه عندك، وأسبابه بيدك، وأنت الذي تقسمه بلطفك وتسببه برحمتك. اللهم فصل على محمد وآله، واجعل يا رب رزقك لي واسعا، ومطلبه سهلا، ومأخذه قريبا، ولا تعنني بطلب ما لم تقدر لي فيه رزقا، فإنك غني عن عذابي، وأنا فقير إلى رحمتك. فصل على محمد وآله، وجد على عبدك بفضلك، إنك ذو فضل عظيم. Inshallah, we'll have the Hakuna, we'll start it now. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء، وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء، وخضع لها كل شيء، وذل لها كل شيء، وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء، وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء، وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء، بسلطانك الذي على كل شيء، وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء، وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء، وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء، وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء. يا نور يا قدوس، يا نور يا قدوس، يا نور يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك العصام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعام، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء، اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء، اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك، وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك، وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك، وأن توزعني شكرك، وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع، أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا، وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته، وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك، ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا، ولا لقبائحي ساترا، ولا لشيء من عمل القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك. ظلمت نفسي، ظلمت وتجرأت بجهلي، وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي، كم من قبيح سترته، وكم من فادح من البلاء أقلته، وكم من عثار وقيته، وكم من مكروه دفعته، وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته. اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي، وقصرت بي أعمالي، وقعدت بي أغلالي، وحبسني عن نفعي بعد أملي، وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها، ونفسي بجنايتها ومطالي. يا سيدي، فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي، ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري، ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي، ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي، وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا، وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك، أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي، أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي، ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي، فغرني بما أهوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء، فتجاوزت بما جرى وعلي من ذلك بعض حدودك، وخالفت بعض أوامرك، فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك، ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك، وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا، مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا، لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني، ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري، وإدخالك إياي في سعة رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري، وفكني من شد وثاقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، يا رب ارحم ضعفني، يا رب ارحم ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي، يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي، هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي. يا إلهي وسيدي وربي، أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد من طوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولهج به لساني من ذكرك، واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك. هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيته، أو تبعد من أدنيته، أو تشرد من آويته، أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي، أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدة، وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقة، وبشكرك مادحة، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة، وعلى ضمائر حوات من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة، وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنة. ما هكذا الظن بك، ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم. يا كريم يا رب، يا كريم يا كريم. وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها، وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثوه، يسير بقاؤه، قصير مدته. فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك. وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي، فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين؟ يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو، ولما منها أضج وأبكي؟ لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته؟ فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك، وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك، وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي. صبرت على عذابك، فكيف أصبر على فراقك؟ وهبني صبرت على حر نارك، فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك؟ أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك؟ فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا، لئن تركتني ناطقا لأضجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين، ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث يا غياث يا غياث يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين، ويا إله العالمين، أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته، وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته، وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤمل لرحمتك، ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك، ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي. فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه؟ أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رب؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات، ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك، ولا مشبه لما عاملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك. فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك، لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما، وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما. لكنك تقدست أسماؤك، أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين، وأن تجلى ثناؤك. قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما. أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي، فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها، أن تهب لي في هذه الليل وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررته وكل جهل عملته، كتمته أو أعلنته، أخفيته أو أظهرته، وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي، وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم، وبرحمتك أخفيته وبفضلك سترته، وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلته أو إحسان فضلته أو بر نشرته أو رزق بسطته أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره. يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي، يا من بيده ناصيتي، يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي، يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي، يا ربي يا ربي يا ربي يا ربي يا ربي يا ربي، أسألك بحقك وبقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورة وبخدمتك موصولة وأعمالي عندك مقبولة، حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا، وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا. يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي، يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي، يا ربي يا ربي يا ربي يا ربي، قو على خدمتك جوارحي واشدد على العزيمة جوانحي، وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك، حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في البارزين، وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين، وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين، وأخافك مخافة الموقنين، وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد، ومن كادني فكده، واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك وأقربهم منزلة منك وأخصهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك، وجد لي بجودك، وعطف علي بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا، وقلبي بحبك متيما، ومن علي بحسن إجابتك، وأقلني عثرتي واغفر زلتي، فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وضمنت لهم الإجابة. فإليك يا ربي نصبت وجهي، وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، واكفني الشر جني والإنس من أعدائي. يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء. يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى، ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء. يا سابغ النعم، يا دافع النقام، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام، يا عالما لا يعلم، صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بي ما أنت أهله. وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميادين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. So in our last session we talked about how according to the Shi'i school of thought, our Islamic law is all based on real good and bad, real expediency, real maslaha and mafsada, as they call it. And so we have real rules based on reality, real things that are out there. Now what we want to talk about is, okay, if that's the case, if we are after real objective laws, the question is, are these objective laws accessible to us or not? Okay, at the end of the day, these laws are in Allah's knowledge. How do I know the rule or the law that I came up with through my ijtihad, through this hadith, through that verse of the Quran? How do I know that I got it right or not? There is no guarantee. At the end of the day, the least that you can be sure about is that this is my understanding of the verse. This is my understanding of the hadith. Okay? If there is a hadith that everyone accepts, let's say, in the end, what's going to make, or verses of the Quran we all accept, in the end, what's going to set us apart sometimes is that my understanding of this verse is different than yours. Okay, so just because I'm sure that this verse is in the Quran, I'm sure that Allah sent this verse down through His Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it still doesn't guarantee anything. Okay, as I've said again and again, there's a million things that have to be discussed when it comes to ijtihad. And once we figure those out, we will have differences of opinion amongst each other. Okay, each of us has expertise, let's say. But in the end, the least is that this is my understanding, that's your understanding. They might be the same understanding, but they might also be different. What matters though is this: even if the whole world has a certain understanding of, let's say, a verse of the Quran, how is there a guarantee that this is exactly what Allah meant? Okay? And so we can never be sure that we have accessed that knowledge of Allah, that objective ruling of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the question begs to be asked: if we are after that real objective law, but we know we don't have access to it, what are we after? That's the question. Okay? What are we after then? What is a mujtahid after? Because if you ask him, he'll say, I'm not 100% sure about this. But this is what I feel is the answer, because this is what the hadith I understand from it. This is what the verse is, what is saying according to my understanding. And this is where the whole idea of hujjah and hujjiyah comes into the picture. Very important discussion. That a mujtahid is after hujjah. Okay, and we'll talk about the definition of it. They are after this proof. They're after an excuse, an argument. Okay, that's what they're after. They are after reality and the real objective law of Islam. But they know they don't have access to it. So in reality, if you ask him, hey, what are you after? He'll say, I'm after a hujjah for the reality. I'm after a hujjah that reflects what the rule of God is. In the end, I have a hujjah. Are you 100% sure? No, I'm not 100% sure that this is the exact ruling of God. But I have a hujjah for this. So what is the definition of hujjah? Okay, definition of hujjah, I mean, they'll use the equivalents of proof, evidence, things like that. But what I like to say is, it is what can be used for or against you in a court of law of akhirah. On the day of judgment, when Allah stops you, let's say, and says, why did you say this? Why did you get past such a fatwa, such a ruling? What was your dalil for this? What was your ruling for the reason for this? What was your argument for this? I have to have a hujjah. Hujjah means either I got it right or I got it wrong, but since I have this, I am off the hook if I got it wrong. Right? Oh Allah, we tried our best. You knew we don't have access to your knowledge. This is the best we could do. We tried our best. We did all of the discussions. We thought about everything. Why is it that my understanding is going to be binding on me, although my understanding of a verse isn't 100% sure? I don't have 100% certainty this is what was meant. And hermeneutics talks about these things. These sciences out there, they talk about these things. Trying to figure out what the person who said it meant by what they said. But if I was told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or it was sanctioned by Allah that I go by my understanding, okay, then I have a hujjah. So this is where usul al-fiqh is so important. It discusses the different hujjas that we can have. What are potential hujjas? What are potential arguments that we can use? Justifications for what we're doing. Can I rely on Quran if my understanding of it might not be 100%? But the surface meaning of this, the zahir of this verse, I can figure that out. If I show 100 people this verse, 95 of them are probably going to understand the same thing that I did. This is the zahir, apparent meaning that you get from this verse or this hadith. But still, I'm not 100% sure. But what if usul al-fiqh, you do the work there, you come to the conclusion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants this much from you. For Allah, 85% certainty, 70% certainty that comes from your understanding of zahir of a verse or hadith is enough. That's hujjah. So it can be used for you. Let's say you got it wrong. A hujjah can be used for you if you got it wrong. On the Day of Judgment, Allah says, why did you say this is halal when it was haram? You say, because of this hujjah that I had. Because you had told me to follow this 70% certainty of mine. And to act as if it's 100% certainty. then you have hujjah for you if you got it wrong. What if there was a hujjah out there that Allah had said, I want you to follow even if you don't have 100% certainty, but I want you to follow it, and you didn't follow it. It can be used against you on the Day of Judgment. Okay? That's what hujjah means. It can be used for you, it can be used against you. It is a justification. And so this is a very important chapter in the books of Usul al-Fiqh. What are the hujjas out there? Is a hadith that's khabar wahid, is it hujjah or not? Is me relying on the apparent meaning of a verse or hadith, is that hujjah on me or not? Is it binding on me or not? On the Day of Judgment, can Allah tell me, you had 80% certainty because this was the zahir meaning of this verse. Why didn't you go by it? Can I turn around to Allah and say, I didn't have 100% certainty? If it's a hujjah, Allah is telling you 80% for me is as if it's 100%. Go by it. Because brothers and sisters, we live in a real world, okay? We don't have ilm ghaib. This is the best that can be done. Okay? And so these methods and methodologies have been used throughout history. The Imams haven't said, don't do this. Hey, if there's a verse of Quran, you have to be 100% sure what is meant by it before you act upon it. Is that what they have said? Or no, they say, look, when it says aqimus salah, what do you understand from aqimus salah? Uphold prayer. Do you understand wujub from this? If I show 100 people this sentence, aqimus salah, what is the meaning that they'll usually understand from this? How do people communicate? When your dad tells you, go and get meat for today's lunch, go get this food for today's lunch, do you understand that, oh, he means it's okay if I go, it's okay if I don't go? Usually, when a command is there, what do you understand from it? What is the zahir meaning and apparent meaning of it? You go get it. If someone that is higher than you, is superior to you, tells you to do something, it's usually wajib unless otherwise specified. That is the zahir of it. Okay, so these are just examples I'm giving. So if I, in usul, come to the conclusion that something that is zahir is binding on me, is hujjah, true, it's 80%. But Islam says take it and act upon it as if it's 100%. Okay? Then do I have an excuse on the Day of Judgment if I don't go by it? No. Now sometimes even, the hujjah, I want to show how important this hujjah is. Sometimes the hujjah will say something to you. Let's just say there is a reliable hujjah for you, whether it's a hadith, a verse of Quran, an ijma', whatever it is. And as a matter of fact, it was wrong. And the reality of the matter was, and the truth of the matter was that I'm not supposed to follow it because it's wrong, but I followed it, still off the hook. You see, that's what hujjah does for you. And vice versa. Sometimes you can't turn around to Allah and say, on the Day of Judgment, let's say if there was a hujjah, there was a hadith, let's say, that was binding on you, and you had an understanding of it, which was the zahir meaning of it according to you, and you had to go by it, but you didn't go by it. Turns out it was wrong. You still punished. Allah won't turn around and say, and this is of course the mainstream, I would say, view, that, oh, in reality, the hujjah was wrong. So you didn't have to go by it, and since you didn't, you're off the hook. No, why didn't you go by it? I had told you, when you have a reliable hadith, let's say, you have to follow it. Okay, I'll give you an example. There's like a king in a country, in a land. This king has to go for a long trip. Put someone in his place. Okay? It says, listen to whatever this person says. He goes. Now you, as a person who has your own opinion on things, this successor to that king, or that replacement, that temporary replacement for the king says, we need to do this for the country now. I need all of the army to mobilize and do something. And you don't listen to him. Okay? When that king comes back, he's like, why? I wasn't of the opinion that the army should mobilize. But in that moment when you're there, and this is my successor, you have to listen to that person. Right? You get in trouble still, even though the king, right, didn't believe in what the successor was telling you to do. It's just an example. This is called tajarri, when you have jur'ah, when you go against what Allah has told you to do. Allah told you to go by the hujjah. I didn't go by the hujjah, it turned out that I was right. Still you get in trouble. The ends don't justify the means in Islam. Okay? So there's a whole section in the usul books. What is hujjah? What is not hujjah? Can we go to the Quran? And we'll go through these, inshallah, in the future. Can I go to the Quran or not? What else? Can I go by my understanding of the Quran or not? Okay? These are all discussions. Hadith, khabar wahid. If there's one solitary report, can I go by it or not? Or does it have to be many? What if no ulama have ever acted upon that hadith, even if it has a reliable chain? Is that hujjah on me or not? What kind of hadith is hujjah? These are all discussed. Okay? My understanding of the hadith, is it hujjah on me or not? And so on and so forth. A million things are discussed. Is istihsan, is qiyas hujjah? So these are all discussed in Kitab al-Hujjah. And I'm just saying this just for the heck of it, that there's a Shaykh Muhammad Rida Muzaffar. We read his Usul al-Fiqh book in the Hawza. He has, I think it was 4 main chapters in his book. One of those 4 main chapters is Kitab al-Hujjah, where he discusses all of these things. These potential hujjahs, how many are actually hujjah on or not? So this is hujjiyah, brothers and sisters. Now, did Allah just randomly say, you know what, I'm just going to make a few things hujjah on people? Or no? Did Allah look and see what is the best thing out there, most practical thing out there for us to be able to reach the truth, at least most of the time? We're not infallible, we'll make mistakes. But is there something out there that He can make hujjah on us because that's the best thing that can get us to reality? Or no, He just randomly made things hujjah. He just randomly felt like, hey, I want you to go by hadiths. I want you to look at hadiths and see which one's reliable, go by it just for the heck of it. No. That's what we believe. We believe that in Islam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at all the things that are out there, sees which one is more reflective of reality. It's true we don't have access to reality. But the reason why things are made hujjah is because of their reflective nature of reality. It's not just something random. Allah chooses certain things to be hujjah and chooses certain things to not be hujjah. No. It's based on, once again, a real thing here. What is that real element here? It's reflection of reality. Yes? It's called amariyah in Arabic. Things are made amara. Amara means sign, something that reflects something else, shows you something. These things are made hujjah if it's Quran, if it's hadith, because that's the best, brothers and sisters. Why is dhahir hujjah? Why is my understanding of what the apparent meaning of this is, me identifying that this is the apparent meaning of this? Why is this hujjah on me? Because usually that's how people communicate, and usually that's what is reflective of reality, not some weird understanding that's not dhahir of the dhahir of that hadith or Quran or whatever. Okay? So hujjah isn't just something random. It is something that reflects 70%, 80%, gives us that much certainty at least of reality. Okay? And so Allah says, all right, this 80%, I want you to take it as 100%. It's not 100% certainty, but I want you to take it as 100% certainty. In Arabic, they'll say, I know it's not yaqeen or ilm, but it is ilmi and yaqini, meaning it's backed by yaqeen. It's backed by ilm. You know that you have to follow this 80% certainty. Or in other words, they call it it's a yaqeen ta'abbudi, meaning that Allah has made it yaqeen for you as if, although in reality it's not yaqeen. Act as if and assume as if you have yaqeen now. Okay? When you have, let's say, 4 hadiths on something, they're all reliable chains of narrators, okay? And they're all telling you the same thing, you might think to yourself, what if all 4 of these were made up? What if in all 4 of these hadiths, the people narrating it made mistakes? What if they were lying? What if this? There's always possibilities of mistake and error, at least. But because it's hujjah, Allah is telling me, take it as 100%. But I only have 80% certainty. Yes, you actually have 80% certainty, but I am filling the rest up for you. It's as if you're 100%. Why am I insisting on this and emphasizing it so much? Because we're going to need this later. Remember, hujjah means you're sure you're supposed to follow it, but you don't have 100% certainty. Remember this. This is very important when we're talking about the differences of opinion and conflicting fatwas. We'll talk about it. Okay? But it's sanctioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alright. Having said that, Hujjiyah, I think one can understand this. That Hujjiyah doesn't mean tasweeb. Something we talked about before. Tasweeb said everyone is right. Meaning what? Meaning the reality of the matter is dependent on what you have come to. I'm speaking louder and louder to cover it, don't worry. Okay? I'll repeat. Tasweeb says, we talked about this before. Tasweeb says everyone is right. Everyone is right, really. Meaning what? Meaning as if Allah is waiting to see what I come to. Okay, as a conclusion. And then Allah writes that in His ilm. And says, okay, the ruling is now this. So everyone's right. Remember we talked about this, and the Shia does not believe in this, tasweeb. We believe in takhti'ah, that you can get it wrong. You'll try to aim for the reality of things, but you might miss it. Okay. Hujjiyah, everyone, let's say 20 people have their hujjah, and there's 20 different fatwas on one mas'ala, one issue. Everyone is right, but not right. Right in the sense that they have hujjah, and so they all have to follow what their hujjah tells them, but they're not right in the sense of, did they get it right, meaning they got what Allah has in His ilm? No. So we have to understand, hujjiyah does not mean tasweeb. Hujjiyah means that you have an excuse. End of story. And your excuse that you have is because it's reflective of reality to the extent possible, 70%, 80%. Right? So this also these two should not be confused. Yes, the 20 people who have 20 hujjah, they are quote unquote right. All of them are right in the sense that they're all justified in what they're saying. But are they right in the sense of what they're saying matches the reality of things? Of course, it does not mean that. And so, hujjiyah and bindingness is not the same as tasweeb. Okay? And so having said that, how hujjiyah is not tasweeb, okay? And how hujjah means something that you don't have 100% certainty, you have 70, 80%-ish. But Allah says, act as if it's 100%. Having said these things, let's come to this discussion now of the discussion of how different fatwas is not going to cause problems because of this hujjah matter. Okay? If we were after reality only, okay, did you put it on silent? If we were after reality itself, this is important, I want you to pay attention here. If we have a target, and that's reality, and everyone is claiming that this is reality itself, then conflicting fatwas is going to be a problem. Because there's only one reality. And this is what people usually bring up, as one of the ishkals, one of the problems with Taqlid and Ijtihad. There's only one real rule in law out there. Look, what all these different ulama are saying different things. That's true. If your target is waqi', reality. But if you're trying to hit target of reality through hujjah, then you have a filter there. Okay? And the hujjahs are going to be multiple sometimes. And because hujjah is multiple, there will be multiple fatwas sometimes. Now, I'm not trying to make it sound like there's always ikhtilaf in the fatwas. There's always ikhtilaf in the hujjahs. No, lots of times you'll find that there's overlap and people have the same fatwa, the same opinion. But sometimes one person has their own hujjah, another one has another hujjah. Let's say there's a hadith that you are 100% sure about what it's trying to say. And if you show it to the whole world, everyone's going to have the same understanding. But guess what? You have a rijali opinion that is different than someone else's rijali opinion. One person says, oh, if this individual is in the chain of narrators of the hadith, I throw the hadith away. I don't believe in it. But another one says, no, if this person is in the chain of narrators, I go with the hadith. So we're all unified on the understanding from this hadith. But one says, I discard it because the chain has a problem. So this person, their hujjah, their rijali opinion dictates that they put that hadith aside. Another one goes by it and gives a fatwa based on it. Okay? That's what hujjah does. If we understand this hujjah properly, this idea of hujjah, which is not a hard one in my opinion, okay? If we understand that, then all these different fatwas, all this idea of some people, they get upset like moon sighting, there's only one moon, there's only one Islam, there's only one Allah, why is there different Eids? Well, one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons is because there's an ikhtilaf in the fatwas, because they have different hujjas. This one is convinced that I can go by, I have to only go by naked eye view. What is it called? Moon sighting. Another one says, no, you can use optical aid. All right. Well, there's only one moon. I understand there's only one moon, but there's different views here. Why? Because each of them have their own dalil, their own hujjah. Understand? But how can they agree? How can someone come up with another fatwa when we all know there's only one real? Yeah, we're after that one real one, but we are all using different hujjas to get there. If we had the same hujjah, that would be good. But sometimes, because we're humans, I am convinced that this is my hujjah in this scenario. But the other one believes that their hujjah is something else. One person is, let's talk about chess, for example. Well, it's famous, everyone knows. Some maraja say chess is haram, others say it's halal. The ones who say haram, we have hadith for it. It says chess is haram. Okay? This person says it's hujjah on me. Another one says, yes, I believe in this hadith. But there's other ones here that we have other things going on that shows me, that convinces me 100% that why the Imam said chess is haram in 1400 years ago is because back then it was a gambling tool. Because chess was a gambling tool, it was haram. Not because in and of itself chess is haram. Or this one has their hujjah, that one has their hujjah. Okay? As an expert. Alright. So, hujjah helps us understand this idea of different opinions. Each person has their own hujjah. Finally, another important matter here before we end is the point of the one to last. Hujjah is valuable in fiqh, but it's not applicable in other Islamic sciences. Now, there are different views here, but I'm giving you the mainstream view according to my understanding at least. My understanding is that the mainstream view is that when we talk about hujjah, bindingness, although I haven't reached certainty on something, but it's still binding on me because I'm certain that I have to follow this right now. This idea, okay, only holds in fiqh, they say. It does not hold in other sciences. Example, history. Let's say you have a report, and this gets into touchy subjects as well, okay? Touchy subjects of history even. Let's just say you have a hadith, let's say. A report, let's say. A report that says certain thing happened to a certain imam, let's say. Okay? It's a solitary report, but it has a good chain of narrators. Alright? Can someone say, oh, it's hujjah, I have to follow it now? No. In mainstream Islamic sciences, they'll say hujjah is for us trying to make sure that we have a reason for why we're saying something is halal or wajib or not. But when it comes to history, when it comes to aqa'id, when it comes to other things, let's say even when it comes to medicine, when it comes to biology, let's just say we have a hadith about the makeup of the insan, of a person. And we see that it goes against science of today, let's just say. Okay? Can someone say, no, it's hujjah on me, I have to go by this. All right? Let's say we have a hadith with a sound chain of narrators that says the earth is square, let's just say. All right? What does it mean to say it's hujjah on me? When it comes to other sciences, we're after reality. The problem was with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that was the knowledge of Allah. We don't have access to it no matter what. And so we're like after the hujjah. But when it comes to history, at the end of the day, has Allah said, I want you to follow historical reports too, the same way He wants us to follow fiqhi reports? We don't have a dalil for that. We don't have a reason for that. We don't have an argument for that. Okay? We were going by that because we're going by hujjah in fiqh because it gave us 80% certainty. We didn't have 100% certainty, but Allah told us keep going, keep following it. But with history, do we have this? Do we have anything that says, hey, you're not 100% sure, but still go by it? When it comes to aqa'id, there's like a hadith that says that the imams are like this, okay, or like that. Okay, it's a hadith. My understanding of it, 80%. Was it actually said by the Imam? The chain of narrators, it's a good chain of narrators, but still sometimes things are made up. I have 80% certainty, 70%. Is that enough for me to say this is 100% something that happened in history? Or this is something 100% that I have to believe in when it comes to my aqa'id? No. You only have 80% certainty. In fiqh, for certain reasons, Islam said act as if it's 100%. But with other sciences, no. You still have only 80% certainty. Brothers and sisters, aqa'id are things that we're supposed to believe in. Why? Because we've reached yaqeen because of them. History, same thing. I can't say this happened when I'm only 80% sure. Why? Because there's a hadith that I'm not sure is reliable, is not reliable, or even if it is reliable, was it made up, was it not made up? Did the guy make a mistake writing it down, did he not? There's a ton of things that come into the picture that don't allow me ever to reach 100% certainty. But can I say just because there's a reliable chain, I'm going to say this happened in history for sure? No. That's why with history, it's all about, they call it tajmi'ul qara'in, bringing together clues here and there. It's like detective work. This hadith, we have this report here, we have that report there, this one's in the Sunni source, this one's in the Shi'i source. I have to bring these all together, see what happened, use my mind a little bit. Could the Prophet leave this dunya, let's say, without appointing a successor? How off is that? All of these different things will come together. I'm like, okay, this must have happened, for example. Right? Bibi Fatima's shahadat. I look at this, I look here, I look there, I see, I bring it all together. I'm like, okay, something must have happened. Okay? So it's all about bringing clues together when it comes to history. Aqa'id. Lots of times you have to use your own aql and philosophy and work so that you come to a yaqeen. And then you'll have some hadiths as well that might even be weak. But you can also put those in the equation and say, okay, we also have some hadiths here. The chains, there is no chain mentioned for them. But these are also falling in line with what I've understood philosophically. So Allah must not have a body, a material body. Let's just say, whatever. Or let's just say, okay, so the Imams must be ma'soom. For this reason, this reason, this reason. We also have some hadiths here as well. You have to bring them all together. So all of a sudden what you notice is something is hujjah in fiqh. But at the end of the day, it was hujjah meant what? Meant 80% plus 20%. The 20% was coming from Islam itself, was saying, act as if it's 100. But in the end, we know it's only 80% certainty when it comes to me. Right? And when it comes to other sciences other than fiqh, in the end, I have 80% certainty, 70% certainty. Can I say historically this has happened because I have a hadith for it? Not necessarily. These will be some of the clues, some of the qara'in that come together and help us even more. And it's interesting, because some people, when it comes to these matters, like history and others, they'll say, oh, this hadith is weak, throw it away. No. Even these are clues. If you can bring enough of these things together, sometimes you come to certain conclusions as well. So, if a book like, let's say, Bihar al-Anwar has been written and every hadith out there has been put in it. Weak hadiths are in there, everyone knows. There are weak hadiths in Bihar al-Anwar. That's true. But if you have enough reason to believe something, and you also have certain hadiths that are in Bihar that might be weak, but you bring all of these together, yes, these support each other sometimes. They come together. This gives you 5% more certainty. This one gives 8% more certainty. Before you know it, when you bring everything together, you actually reach 100% certainty yourself. And you go by that. You can say that now. You can say, I am convinced that this happened in history. I am convinced this is one of the aqa'id that we have. I am convinced that the imams have to be ma'soom, let's say, and so on and so forth. Okay? So this discussion, I'm just sharing with you what you usually hear. There are some who believe that, no, even if I have a normal hadith with a proper chain of narrators, I can believe that something happened in history. Okay? But they're not necessarily mainstream. If I have a hadith that gives me the tafsir of a verse of Quran, I can go by it if it's a reliable source. Ayatollah Jawadi Amudi, sometimes he will sound like this, right? He'll sound like this. He'll say, in fiqh, this would not be a hujjah on us, this hadith. But since we are in these sciences, I'm going to use this and other ones and slowly bring them together so that I'm convinced. As a matter of fact, he sounds sometimes as if they are hujjah, even if they don't give him 100% certainty. Okay? That's why I said this is mainstream. There are many opinions here. And I don't want to say Jawadi Amuni He's outside of mainstream. He has his own take. We have to see how he explains it all. So there's a lot of opinions here. There's a lot of intricacies here. I'm just giving you just a taste of what the discussions out there are. Now, sometimes you have a hujjah, going back to fiqh. Sometimes you look, you can't find anything that is reflective of reality at least. You can't find an amara, something that reflects reality, at least 70% for you, 80%, that is hujjah. Then what do? Then there are certain rules that come in. They're called usul amaliyah. We've talked about it a little bit in the past. Usul amaliyah, like asalatul bara'a, asalatul ihtiyat, asalatul takhyir, istishab. These are 4 things that are discussed. That even if you don't have anything that reflects, or you found something that reflects reality for you, but it's not hujjah on you because let's say it has a weak chain of narrators, it is now time to go to these asls, these rules that we have. Hey, oh Allah, oh Islam, what do I do? When I look throughout the hadith corpus and I don't find anything that tells me smoking is haram. Not because it's harmful to the body, no, in and of itself it's haram. Even one puff. Is that harmful? One puff isn't harmful, right? But show me a hadith. I don't have a hadith for it. What do I do, oh Allah? Which rule? What's the rule here? Practically, what am I supposed to do? That's when these rules come in. Bara'ah and all that. These are all different discussions that we'll have later. They are not relevant to the hujjah discussion. Yes? All right? So any questions before we end? Yes?
If I understood you correctly when you said that this rule of hujjah is not applicable to other sciences. Even in history, when you weigh the different sources, when you, in day-to-day life,
Yeah.
you have to weigh things in. And when you see something is 50%, something 60%, it's upon you to go with the 70%.
Yes.
So if you do that, but if I understood you correctly, this reality, this hujjah cannot be applicable to it.
So brother, he says, he's a good point, and you're actually supporting what we're talking about, so I'll explain. The brother is asking that, look, at the end of the day, all right, in this pragmatic, practical life that we're living in the end, we will go with 60, 70%. All right? How is it that we're saying hujjiyya doesn't apply to other than fiqh? Correct? Is that your question? And the answer is, in my opinion, that you use the word in our practical life. In the end, I have to either do something or not do something. Correct? That equals fiqh. Because fiqh is the do's and the don'ts. Fiqh is the practice. All the other stuff I said, yes, all the other stuff I said, history, aqa'id, these aren't practices. These are things that I have here, I believe in. Okay? Do I believe in the end, let's say, when there's reports that when the Prophet was born, let's say, certain natural phenomenon took place. Does the Quran tell us this? No. Okay? I'm not saying I don't believe in it, by the way. All right? Just giving an example. In the end, you'll find that these are in certain historical, not even hadith books maybe, historical books or hadith books, let's say. Okay? In the end, brother, am I going to believe that this actually happened or not? Just because there's a hadith that gives me 60% certainty. If someone comes and tells you that you're not sure if such and such restaurant is open, okay? Such and such restaurant is open. If someone comes and tells you, yeah, I think it's open on Thursdays, it's open. Doesn't say I think. It's open on Thursdays, right? Would you still take out your phone to look at Google Maps or open it up and see if they're open or not? Or if that person who has been wrong in the past, or there's a chance they're mistaken, you have a feeling that they're mistaken. If they tell you get in your car, you'll still go for a 25-minute drive to the restaurant. You'll double check, okay? Why? Because you didn't get certainty from that, okay? You didn't get certainty from that. This is what is meant. In the end, do I believe in something or not? Okay, do I believe that this happened in history or not? If you're 100% sure, you'll believe in it. If you're not 100% sure, even if there's a hadith, because there's chances, there's mistakes in these hadiths, or they're not reliable, or whatever it is, the best you can say is, I have 60% certainty here that this happened in history. You can't say, oh, because we have a hadith for it now, 100% it happened. 100% happened. As I said, there are different opinions here. But usually the opinion that you will find is that it's not binding on you to accept it because the hadith hasn't taken you to 100% certainty. And we don't have other dalils and other arguments to prove that when a hadith comes, you have to accept it no matter what, for whatever science is out there. Medicine, for example, all these medical hadiths we have, will you go by it? Someone might say, but these are hujjah on me. Some of these are hujjah on me. Does it give you 100% certainty? No, it doesn't, but it's a reliable chain on this one. Bismillah. As some of these ulama, they said, they would say, imtihanish majjaniya. It's free to test it, see if it works or not. That shows that they're telling you, like, this, just because there's a hadith for it here, it's not fiqh. So, are you 100% sure? You're not. Okay, if you're not 100% sure, then you can't say, this is the case. That's what they say when it comes to these other non-fiqhi sciences. Does that make sense? But it's something to ponder over and think about a lot. I still remember, for me, it took me a while to register this whole thing of, hey, what does that mean? It's not hujjah when it comes to non-fiqh. Yeah? It takes some time to think out. It has to sink in a little bit. To at least understand those who are against it, what they believe. Someone might have the opinion that, no, if there's a hadith, I'll go by it no matter what. Yeah? Even if it goes against science of today, even if it goes against biology of today, I'll go by it because we have a hadith for it. There might be some people out there that are like that, but usually the mainstream is, just because you have a hadith for it, doesn't necessarily mean that you have 100% certainty as a result. And so you can say, we have a hadith for this, but you can't say, this happened in history, for sure, 100%. I still remember one of these ulama, he even said, if you say this happened without being 100% sure, just because there's some report somewhere, then that's kidb. If you're not sure about something, but you say it as if it's 100%, that's not telling the truth, actually. Yeah, that's the definition of not telling the truth. When you're not 100% sure about something, to say it as if it's 100% certain. You know, to that extent, some of these ulama have gone. Yeah, but others, they'll say no. If I have a hadith, I'm going to go with it, no matter what. Of course. No, yeah. So the brother says there are some hadiths that we're 100% sure about, that were uttered. Yeah. So like, for example, hadith al-Thaqalain. Yeah, we'll say it because we're 100% sure that this was said. Why? Because so many people have narrated it to the point that it's not about me thinking, oh, 70% this was said. I'm 100% sure this was said. Yeah, if any hadith for you reaches a point of tawatur, they call it, where you're sure this was said, because so many people have narrated it to you, that's a different story. That's why I kept saying solitary, isolated reports, khabar wahid. The ones that it's found in one of the books, it has one chain of narrators. As I said, there's different opinions here, but the mainstream usually is, for non-fiqhi matters, they won't take it as 100%, as a hujjah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Why our ulama, they make us or themselves confused in a way that they are taking from Quran, they are taking from Hadith, but at the same token they say that Quran has everything. It is ilm of everything. If it is the ilm of everything, then why you're going to other things where you're not sure 70% or 40%?
The Quran has ilm of everything, and there's a big discussion on that. What is meant by it? Because do you find anything about cryptocurrencies in the Quran? No. So they've explained that what is meant when it says the Quran says, like one of the opinions is that the Quran has everything, tibyanan likulli shay, means that it has everything in it for you to secure your akhirah. Not necessarily all of the facts of the world, you know? Yeah, so all of so there's different opinions on what is meant here. Some have said, yeah, the Quran has everything means that even the stuff that I haven't spoken about, I've told you where to go, the Prophet, the Imams. And so you go there, but we don't have access to the Prophet and the Imams. We just have reports that have come down to us. So some of them we're 100% sure about, we go by. Some of them we're 80% sure about. If it's fiqh, we go by it. If it's non-fiqh, different opinions. Some say we go by it, some say we don't go by it. So you see, it's a science, brother. Just like any other science, as time passes, different opinions will come. And so this is where we are. And the best we can do is to follow the ones who have spent 60, 70 years at least filtering through all of this. You see, we've only done 7 sessions of very basic ijtihad, and talking about it, I feel like we're already kind of, kind of giving up, like, okay, we'll just follow the ulama. That's how, after a while, just like if I listen to a medical expert speaking about their thing, after a while I'm like, hey, you just be the doctor, I'll just come to you, do whatever. Yeah. He says, I don't have a hujjah here. Yeah. So the brother's asking when a marja doesn't have a fatwa, he gives an ihtiyat wajib. What does that mean? That means, yeah, I have not reached the point where I can speak with confidence that I have a hujjah here to say this. But at the same time, I find there are some things here that, might also hint that something is wajib. So I might give it ihtiyat. Yeah. But it hasn't reached that level of hujjah for me. I'm not 100% convinced that this is a hujjah for me here in this scenario. And so they give it ihtiyat. Ihtiyat means I don't have a fatwa. I don't have a fatwa means I don't have a hujjah to say that Islam says this. They're scared. Maraja are scared. They can't just say it because it sounds good. Right? Man afta bighayri ilm, if I'm not mistaken, فَلْيَتَبَوَّأْ مَقْعَدَهُ مِنَ النَّارِ, or man afta bighayri ilm, or something like that. That the Prophet ﷺ, he said that whoever gives an opinion on Islam, but without ilm, they can get ready for the hellfire. Even if you get it right, doesn't matter. You gave a fatwa, not based on hujjah. You can get yourself ready for the hellfire. They're scared, they do ihtiyat. They run away from being marja. Like these maraja, you have to chase them. Please be marja, please be marja. Yeah? At least some of them that are very pious. So the reason for it is this. Because they're not convinced. How can I say Islam says this? Allah says this when I don't have hujjah?
What is our responsibility in understanding these historical facts, like someone like me?
Very good question.
So how do I get, because I don't have read the books.
Very good question. So as a lay person, how am I supposed to learn history? That's the question, right? What is my responsibility towards history? And so you have no choice but to do taqlid even in history. Okay? But taqlid in history has a different meaning than taqlid in fiqh. Just like you go to the doctor, you're doing taqlid when you go to the doctor. Okay? When you go to the doctor, you're doing taqlid, meaning what? You're the expert, you tell me what you think. But even there, the doctor, if they ask you, are you 100% sure he's right? You're like, no, but that's the best I can do. History, same thing. When I go to the historians' books, this is the best I can do. There's raw history books, and there are historians who have used these raw material to come up with their own history books. Okay? So for a person like Sayyid Ja'far Murtada Amili, or a person like Sayyid Murtada Askari, what do? They go and look at all the 10, 20 history books. I can't read them, let's say. They're Arabic, they're complicated, there's a lot of different reports, they have to be refined. So what he does is, he does the work, he comes up with some history. I, as a non-expert, go to him and see what he says, because I trust him. So it does go back to your trust. And I'm not going to be convinced just by him. I'm going to look at other historians too and see what they say sometimes. Sometimes it takes him and two more for you to reach a certainty that, okay, I can believe in this. All right? Sometimes it takes more, sometimes it takes less. Sometimes it depends on how important that thing that you're looking at is. Sometimes it's just, oh, the imam was this tall. Okay, whatever, I'll just see what this one said. Sometimes it's about certain details that are very significant when it comes to history. That's when you do a lot more diligence, right? So, but in the end, you're doing taqlid. You're doing taqlid because you're following one of these experts and seeing what they're saying. So when we try to hit the target, but when we miss it, Allah makes it up to us or makes it up for us because we've missed out on some expediency, some good here, right? Let's say someone came to the conclusion Fajr Salat is not wajib. He would have a lot of followers, by the way. But let's say someone comes to that conclusion. On the Day of Judgment, they never prayed Fajr. They're like, oh Allah, I missed out on Fajr. You made this hujjah on me. But now I missed out on something. There's a whole discussion. That's our next topic, actually. All right, now that we are supposed to follow 80% certainty, even 100% certainty, you might still be mistaken, right? Sometimes you have yaqeen about something, but you're still mistaken, okay? But I know I have to follow that. All right, how does Allah make it up to us now? Does He make it up to us even? Does He not? There are different opinions. Maybe we might go through 4, 5, or 6 of those opinions. That's for our next session. That's the third, actually, aspect of our discussion. In our last session, I said, If we believe in taqti'ah and that there are objective Islamic laws in the knowledge of Allah, we will need to discuss three matters. The first was expediency. Second was hujjiyah. The third was deprivation of expediency, aka missing out on expediency because I followed amaras, because I followed hujjas, and they turned out to be wrong. Yeah? How does this make up for that? There's a whole nice discussion there as well. And then once we're done with that, we'll go into normal discussions. These were introductory, okay? Then we'll go into normal, easier, hopefully easier discussions of what is it? What are the different discussions they have on what is hujjah, what is not hujjah? It'll be smooth sailing, hopefully, from there. Inshallah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Salawat. السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين السلام على الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة السلام على 9 المعصومين من ولد الحسين السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب الزمان عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته